Oh, hello there. Hi.
Alright.
Hey.
We're just out of.
Saw 1.
Saw 1.
Saw, the original, 2004.
Yeah, it was not called Saw 1 at the time, just Saw.
I just saw it, yeah.
I'm guessing that came from the actual Saw.
Yeah.
And then what did it become? Just...
Well, that was just the trademark for it, I guess, because the guy cut off his foot in the first one, so it's got to be Saw.
Is the. I've got a few things right after the watch. Is the Hello Zep music related to the fact that the guy's called Zep?
Yeah, it's the title of the track. That's the title of it.
Smart. There's a bit in this film that if you were born after a certain year, you won't understand before digital photography.
Oh.
Yes.
After. Yeah, I'll probably talk about that in the episode we're recording tomorrow.
Yes, very true.
Amazing.
My parents, they started their entrepreneurial journey doing photographies at weddings.
Oh, wow, really?
Very cool.
Yeah, so
Very nice.
the whole process was mastered and everything.
Yeah,
So-
you've got the phone as well, which is probably hasn't been seen for
A long time, yeah.
a long time.
So, on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you for the next one? Are you not tired out yet with the first one?
Well, at the moment, I don't really want to see the second one, but I think in general, I'm quite interested to see the second one.
Yeah, me too.
We will be recording all of them to make sure they are out before the actual Halloween date.
Oh, true.
So yeah, that was the first one.
Oh, excuse me.
I don't know if I'll talk in this episode or the following ones about Aristotle's Poetics and the units of time, location, and I don't remember what the third one is, but it's not really suitable in this one because, well, the other ones are more suitable probably
Right.
because of all the jumps and everything. So that, I don't know what that was, an introductory.
Yeah, we're just doing these to see how our reactions are after each one, to see how we deteriorate throughout the series if we get bored or so on and forth. So,
Right.
yeah, we'll see you again soon for Saw 2.
Yes, we will.
Yorick says bye. Hey, hello everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
How's life?
Yeah, good. How's everybody else on the couch?
I'm great. It's my birthday tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo.
Well, celebrations will happen. Well,
Will have
we're-
happened by now, surely.
we're obviously we're doing that on a Saturday, but your birthday's on a Sunday, isn't it?
Nope, Saturday both
Birthday's
days.
tomorrow.
Oh, okay. So you cheated on your Facebook. It says it's on the 15th. Oh
Tomorrow
wait.
is the 15th.
Oh yeah. Well. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yann.
It's Halloween. It must be Saw.
Yes, that's correct. As if it's one of your choices and favorite, and you decided to make us suffer through all the sevens of them.
I prefer the word subject, but we'll go with summer.
Yeah, we're doing some short videos after each screening to see our state of despair.
Yeah. That's,
And I
Deteriorate.
yes.
well, when we get to about 5, that'll be like the best time to do those ones, because that's roundabout where you get fatigue of the franchise.
Yep.
But I'll be leading this 8-episode soiree. I say 8 because we probably will talk again about the 2017 film Jigsaw, which we did last year, but with having watched all the films up to it and in sequence to see how we feel about that then.
Awesome, indeed. Do you have the dates of all the movies so we can just give the
Yes.
in the first episode?
Yes. What do you mean, like the dates of the movies?
I mean, it's funny because it was clear it was supposed to be always like Halloween movies because the dates are the first one October 29th, 2004, then second one October 28th, the year after that, and then October 27th, and then October 26th, and then October 24th. They missed the 25th, and then October 23rd, 2009, for Saw 6 and Saw 7, which was marketed, I think, as the last chapter or
Well, retroactive
3D.
It was Saw 3D, and then retroactively, it's now called The Last Chapter because obviously they didn't port it to 3D. That might not be true. There might be 3D Blu-rays of it out there, but I don't know. I didn't see it in 3D. I wasn't old enough at that point to see it in cinemas.
Okay, sure. Well, yeah, and then it's sort of from 2004 to 2010 every year.
Oh yeah.
Around Halloween time. So yeah, you're leading. I'll just kickstart with one question then.
Sure.
So just like Mama and What We Do in the Shadows, this was a short film first.
Yeah, this was what is retroactively known as Saw 0.5. When they were trying to get the film made, they made the Amanda bear trap scene to go along with it as an easier sell because they were having difficult times selling it in Australia. So they made the short film, which got them the funding to make the film. And fun fact about Saw 1, this was meant to be a straight-to-DVD film. The only reason this was a theatrical release is because when it went to festivals, people loved it. So they went, all right, there's money in this, so they brought it out.
Yeah, it had like a cult following.
And the proof is in the pudding. This film made about 101 times its budget back.
Wow.
This is a really successful film.
Yeah, it literally had 1 million and then made 100 million worldwide.
This is also the film that launched why we're talking about this. This is the big movie that defined a trait going on in the 2000s, which we'll talk more about in episode 2, because that's a good segue for me to talk about the rules of this sort of retroactive series. For the sake of you, listener, not confusing everyone going forward, we are only going to talk about either pieces of information or plot points of the film within that film. So we can't talk about stuff that is revealed in Saw 3 about Saw 1 or things in Saw 5 that are revealed about Saw 1 until we get to episode 5 or 3. Because that way we're just going to end up confusing ourselves of what movies we've seen. Because we're watching these very close together, even for ourselves to separate what we're watching from each film, we need to do that in the episodes, otherwise we're just going to get lost.
Yeah, but what we're doing though is watching one, recording said episode, watching another one, recording said episode. So we are completely sure that we're not confused ourselves. Yeah. And because watching all of them and then trying to differentiate, that would be a nightmare.
It would be impossible. we would absolutely get confused.
Adam, you might want to put your ball a bit closer to your right, so you can, because your face is.
Oh, do I go out when I? Yeah,
out,
right. Yeah.
Your face is not directing towards the camera.
Oh, good screen tips there from Yann Stickenwa.
Okay.
All right, so this one I told the story in the Jigsaw episode about how this sort of became a thing for me later on around like Saw 5 and stuff. I do remember me and my mates were always like, "Oh, have you seen Saw?" Like it was one of the things at our age like you shouldn't have been able to see because we grew up with these coming out in the cinema, so you always saw trailers for it. I do remember distinctly that Saw 4 was once on Channel 4, and I'm like, I might give this a watch. So I secretly watched it upstairs, and I was like, whoa, this thing is like crazy. And I do remember my mum and dad, and I said this in the Jigsaw episode, they did get the love film of Saw 1 and Saw 2, but by that Saw 2, my mum gave up, and my dad watched Saw 3, and they never continued after that. Because my mum is like, I would say my mum is a bit squeamish, but also my mum's quite, what's the right word? My mum gets quite energetic about films. I.e., she'll, like, if it's frightening, she'll get a big fright. If it's funny, she'll, like, roar. But that's just how she is, so I reckon it wasn't her cup of tea, actually.
I must say, I think I remembered only watching, I talked about that in the Jigsaw, but only the first, or the three first movies. But I prepared for the Jigsaw episode and watched all of them in 2 days.
Wow.
So I will try not to make things up now because I'm pretty sure that 4, 5, 6. I never saw them until that last time when we prepared for Jigsaw. So
I'll keep you right. I'll keep you right because I remember the events of each film, and the chronology of these films, which gets really messed up now that we've got Jigsaw as well. But we'll get to that then. So Saw 1, 2004.
Yeah.
Brief plot. Kerry Elways and screenwriter Lee Winnell are entrapped in a room and cannot for the life of them figure out A, why they're there, or B, who put them there. So they spend the film, they have until 6 o'clock for either Kerry Elways, Dr. Gordon, to kill Adam, Lee Winnell, or they're both going to be trapped there. That's the basic plot.
Indeed. So I'll just give here a concept that will be used later on because it's not really applicable here. A long time ago, Aristotle wrote a book called Poetics. And from that book, French classicists, they derived the fact that a play was required to have a single action represented as occurring in a single place and within the course of a day. And those principles became known respectively as unity of action, unity of place, and unity of time. It's not really apparent in the first one, but over the course of all those episodes, all those three unities are completely shattered. Which is, I don't remember seeing them shattered as much and as nicely, because sometimes some plots can be very confusing. I've seen Hereditary. I'm still wondering what it was about. I've seen all those movies, and I think gather retrospectively what they are actually about, even though it's very confusing. So I'm really happy about how it turns out for all of them, and especially so now we're talking specifically about the first one. It's not really apparent that Poetics unity just yet, but I'll get back to that in future episodes.
I don't think anyone has said Saw and Poetics in the same sentence. I think we might be the first people to ever apply Poetics to the Saw franchise.
I mean, even though, Saw 1 was written by people that actually cared about film, and they didn't think that this would do as well as it did, and torture porn wasn't a thing yet. It wasn't a franchise yet. It wasn't about money. It was just these two broke screenwriters who are Australian, who just wanted to make a film.
They are denying the term torture porn.
We'll talk about torture porn in 2, because that's really when the comparisons come in. Because in the first one, there's the reason torture porn exists in the first one is the separate traps that we see. So we see the razor wire maze. We see I don't think it has a name, but the one with the jelly and the safe, the flame. The guy has to find the codes, the arsonist. Right. And then we obviously have the famous Amanda reverse bear trap scene. Those three things, I think, are when people decide to go, this is just torture porn. But when we get to the later ones, when it's like individual traps, because we never really revisit the two people stuck in a room for a whole film again, that's when the argument comes in for torture porn. So I feel torture porn is a conversation for episode 2.
Yeah, right. But I just mean that that wasn't a thing yet.
No, definitely.
So my point was that actually poetic. These screenwriters probably would have known about Aristotle, and they would have talked about film, because these are passionate people who probably know their genre really well.
Yeah.
So I think they had in the beginning they had was it £30,000?
$30,000.
Dollars, sorry.
That's what they get off the back of doing the pitch in LA and with the short film.
Right, and then bigger production companies get involved, and that's when they get the 1.2 million, which is also nothing.
That's great when it happens. It was also the same. It was the Evil Dead whole thing was also short. So it's great when that happens. Yeah. And hopefully, because it would be nice if apparently Laura's Mia is doing very well.
Yeah.
That's true.
Maybe a full may happen. I have no idea, but that would be great.
That's a really good point, yeah.
Yeah.
It's doing really well. It's getting like all the awards like one after the other. They have like 10 or 12, I swear.
I know, and she made it about 2 years ago or something like that.
It was the first thing she did outside
so
the
that's like
diploma.
two years ago
It was
almost.
incredible. Really, really cool that she can be part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one main thing about acting for screen versus theater, right? You have no control of what the outcome is, and you can do something, it never goes out, or it starts to get traction years later, which is the case there.
Yeah. But you never know.
Yeah,
It's like you don't plan anything if you're an actor.
Speaking of plays, the very much the main point of the film with the room, the bathroom, feels like almost a play in a way.
Yeah, a two-hander.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it switches at the 15 minutes mark.
Yeah, because I went back today and watched a bit that I missed yesterday, and I realised, like, oh yeah, they really don't cut away from the bathroom until like 15 minutes into the film. And even then, it's not like a direct cut. It's because of a flashback, because one character's talking about events previous.
I mean, before I watched Saw 1, I was told that the whole thing is done in that bathroom. So when I first watched it, I was like, oh, this is it for the whole hour and a half, I'm guessing. How long
It's
is
about
it?
an hour 40.
Hour 40. And then it actually shocked me that wasn't the case. I mean, they didn't have that much money, so they didn't have that much time. So I'm guessing it made sense that it was all in one place, mostly.
Well, that's probably to do with their script, because when Kerry Elways and Tobin Bell and actually most of the actors that were involved in the project, they got sent the short film as well as the script.
Right.
So they got to watch that and decide, so this is what it looks like, which is quite interesting, because when you get a script, you're like, I don't know how this is going to look. Like, I've definitely had a situation where I've been reading stuff and I'm like, I don't know where this is going, or I can't imagine how this looks. Yeah. To have that little piece of thing going, here's what our base idea looks like, is actually really cool and quite, and like, I wish people did that as well.
That's one of the ways in budget filmmaking that you're what was it? Reservoir Dogs. Everything was the whole set was in the same warehouse, and there was just moving not that much.
Yeah, there's barely anything.
Between the artistic vision. If you listen to the commentary on the Game of Thrones Blu-rays or DVDs,
not yet.
There is one where actually George R.R. Martin.
I've seen that one. The one when they battle in like series 2, like on the ocean. I've done that one.
Yeah, I don't remember, but at some point he says that his vision, he was never allowed to have his full vision on the screen because it was a budget of like 25 million per episode.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So they adapted, obviously, but still, I think is that like 10? Is that 1 or 10 million the budget per episode?
I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, anyway, if you look at the founder of Raindance, Elliot Grove, his low to no budget screen making, that actually Paul used before he did Conman. I think when we had the Isolani Q&A, he said location. If it's in the writing, when you can think about the locations in the writing from the start, obviously the budget will be reduced significantly. Even for if you start with a full feature, it can happen, and it happens, which is quite great, awesome.
So the actual film itself, the opening.
Yes.
Anouk, you have problems with the opening.
I do.
Yeah, you do, because that's one of the first things you brought up as soon as it started.
Oh.
So we watched this all together, sitting in the same positions that we are now. We did actually consider recording an audio track for us watching Saw 1, because it was like the big one. But I'm glad we didn't, because as we started the film, something strange. Watching films with Anouk is always one of the most interesting things ever, because Anouk will have reactions, and then halfway through the film, Anouk kind of simmered out. Now I'm wondering what the reasons for that is. That because you like gave up with it, or is that because you're like, okay, I'm kind of into this now?
No, I got into it. But also I've seen this film like 5 times. So, and we'd all seen it before. So when we watched it together, I was kind of just talking through it, like what I was going through inside. but yeah, I actually stopped talking because I was like really involved in the thing. You know, when you come out of a film and you're like, oh shit, I've been so involved in this film, I forgot about reality.
Yeah.
That happened a few times, and I think that's, you know, hats off to everyone involved, because it with such a small budget and the amount of time that they had to make this, you know, a film was tiny. So I think that just goes to show.
I think this will be one of the first episodes that we mainly talk about a lot of plot stuff as well, because it's strange to look back on Saw, because when it came out, it was well received, because at the time we were in a really weird place with horror films. Like, we were very much in like the sequel problem, i.e. like Halloween 6 or Jason X and Friday the 13th, like 49 or whatever. Like, we were really in the fatigue of like people getting bored of the... Because in the 80s, they turned the villains of the horror films into heroes. Like, they became the people you attached to because they were the people in the film that you came to see, because they were the only consistent character that kept coming back. In this film, it was turned on its head. It's like, right, care for the victims. Like, you put yourself into their shoes, which I think is really well done in the first one.
Also, a completely different concept, and something that I really liked was that Jigsaw had a reason to do what he was doing. And I know that other films have done that, but I that's something that I really connected with. The fact that he had a reason for doing it, and it didn't seem so crazy. I mean, he's a sadistic, horrible guy, but
yeah. And what also is good is, we talked about that a few times, not on air, but when I was out of The Predator, I said there was at one point I knew what the line. I knew in advance what the line coming.
Yeah.
So I have issues with that, and also just like you mentioned, because you also have that when you see stuff coming and you don't see anything coming in this one.
No.
So that stuff you just talked about John Kramer's, you don't get that until the very end.
No, it's true. The reveal of... Finally, we get to talk about it, because we did kind of briefly mention it in the Jigsaw episode, but we get to talk about it full in here. That reveal of him getting off the floor still gets you every time you watch it, and you know it's coming because it's paced well.
it's that music as well. It gets me every... I'm just like, oh my god, it was the guy in the floor the
fact as well that Tobin Bell is really on the floor a lot of the time. Like, he was really into the fact of, like, no, I wouldn't say method acting, but like being involved a lot.
Well, you know, I was watching in the first few minutes, and I know because when I died on the floor of a huge stage during the Fringe as Polonius, I struggled to keep not moving my body.
Your intercostal muscles.
Yes. And I watched, and it wasn't moving. So I don't know if it was really him all the time, or if they...
A fair amount of the time, because he talks about, like, I was on the floor for a lot of that stuff.
Nice.
And the directors, because they love him, and as we go on further, we'll talk about it more, but every single film they come in and go, basically, if Tobin says, I think I would say this, you just go, yeah, because Tobin knows the mind of his character, like, so well. So he's like the best to go for dialogue for his character.
Right.
I think as well, because he was on his back and there was a lot of blood, and there's quite...
He's on his front. He's on his front.
Yeah,
he's on his front. I just mean you see his...
You see his back a lot. Yeah.
That's right.
That's probably going to help a lot more, and that was probably cleverly done, because it's like that will make it easier for you to, you know, breathe at least a little bit when you're on.
Indeed, yes. When I died, I ended up on my back. I should have ended up on my side to be more visible to the audience, but I just died, you know.
Yeah.
So right now, hats off to Charlie Clouser, who made the Hello Zep track.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah,
really, really, really good music.
It's
the whole way through.
You hear that anywhere, anytime, any place. You know exactly where it's coming from.
That motif of the that motif is laced throughout the film at multiple points, and it's always there, and it's so slight. And the most annoying thing as we go on in the series is they overuse that song to death. Really, it is barely in this film at all. And it's when it comes up at the end, you're like, oh wow. It's almost like they spent the budget on the song. And it's a good thing they did because it's so well done. They got someone that clearly cared about making music for the subject that they're doing. And it's totally in the right atmosphere, the right tone, right everything.
Especially because when he closes the door at the end, it hits with the music so perfectly. It kind of has a crescendo with the door slam. So it affects you even more because you're like... And it's also my worst nightmare to be like buried alive. So that it affects me so much.
I think 2 magicians died like this, or more, being buried alive. A trick that went wrong.
Oh God! Oh, I hate the thought. I just hate the thought. So much.
Yeah. There was the bullet catch and this one. Yeah.
Oh, there's loads of the bullet catch.
12.
Yeah.
Way more. The bullet catch. Yeah. Well.
Really? That's
Yeah.
horrible. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it really, and that's all to do with the music. Like, I totally agree.
There is something in this film that if you're too young, you won't understand. Were you already born at the time of the... So there's digital photography, and well, in French, the other standard one is argentique, which is basically film. What's the... Is there an English word for what is not the digital photography? The other one, is it just film?
Just film, yeah. Film photography.
Okay, so we created the new.
Yeah.
Argentique is based on the word argent, which is silver for some reason.
Considering you guys invented the cameras, film camera for sure. The French can have any term they want, and that'll be like the origin of that.
It was photographie argentique versus photographie numérique, so digital photography versus film. My parents, when they started very young, their entrepreneurial journey, they did what Adam is. Oh, another Adam! Hey, the photographer in that film is doing, which is developing. Film in a was that red room or
a red room? Yeah.
Yeah.
Not like in 50 Shades of Grey, red room.
Oh, for God's sake!
Or that red rum. There's nothing to do at all.
No, that's just murder backwards.
That's murder backwards.
Yes. So they used to do that, and sometimes when it was, well, sometimes it didn't work as planned, not because obviously this is a red room to preserve the film to being completely veiled, like discarded. They never had the thing when someone enters and the full light just burns all your film, but they had some chemicals that they used. Well, my dad did the development. He used too much of it, or too less, and the pictures, well, the photographies ended up either with a weird green tone, or there are some interesting stories I told not so long ago actually about that's the time when you had to go to a studio and have them developed, and it took a few days, and now except maybe what the resurgence of the Polaroid. Everything else is digital.
Just so you guys know, I'm not that young. Like I might be 22, but I was not born after digital film. I remember being on holiday with like the wind up cameras, or having to go to Boots and hand in your film and to get it brought back to you in like the photos.
Okay, so someone who would be 12 today would probably not know about.
No, probably not. Like 10, 12 now, you probably would not. If you were, you might have been alive, but you would not remember non-digital film.
Like a red room wouldn't really be in your, because I remember with my uncle who lives in France. He had a red room. I never really understood it as a kid, but that's kind of what photography was. Like that's the only way you could get photos, and like the immediacy of having a photo was just not a thing. And getting them developed at Boots. Oh, my favorite thing. Snappy Snaps.
Oh,
was that what it's called? Snappy Snaps.
I think so. Yeah.
I think it's a shop here. There's Snappy. Yeah.
But does it still exist? Yeah.
Yes, I've. It's. I was looking for something to have, to find some Polaroid film last year, and that's one of the names that came around. But there are still some clubs, obviously, as in every field. But I know that Alan, who was the cinematographer on our ACS shorts,
Yes, yeah.
was he is in a club, and they have film stuff every month, and when you go, I think you can get a free can of film or something. When I was looking for some stuff, I came around this. I never went, but it sounded and looked like nice as a hobbyist club thingy. Yeah.
I think it will always be there. Like, people are always going to go back and want the kind of retro, different thing. Like, vinyls are still in. I know that there are lots of vinyl shops that are going out of business, but they're still around, and people still have vinyl, and like, it's so important for people.
Well, look at books.
Yeah, books are still around.
Yeah, and that's we're talking about still images, but obviously there are some directors in the world like Christopher Nolan and Quentin Tarantino who only swear by film. They will not use digital ever. I mean, later in the process for the transfers, yeah, obviously, but when the film, which is funny, I always wondered how, because they will film on film, but then the editing will have to be done I don't know, that's a weird... but anyway, there are some that I really, really prefer film, and even though I don't know if you heard about Christopher Nolan, he's just unrestored 2001.
Right. That's very cool.
So that's the unrestoration. So he removed all the stuff that happened after the time it was released.
That's incredible.
And it's about to go in, that's a 70 millimeters presentation, so you can't have it everywhere. Prince Charles can, the film house in Edinburgh can, and London there are a few 70 millimeters.
There's quite a few people that would want him to do that for Star Wars.
That's really cool. Oh, definitely. I mean, didn't Tommy Wiseau have two cameras? So I think it's that. I think if you want to have it film, you need a certain camera, and if you want digital, you need a certain camera. So I'm guessing he does own with both.
Yeah, obviously. Well, what Tommy Wiseau did, because he wasn't sure, it was his first time, and he's actually the first person in the world who's done that.
Yeah.
He had a digital camera and a 35 millimeter camera filming at the same time, which led me to the question I asked when I was on stage last year, if we were going to have a 3D version at some point, because the cameras were on one single, they had something constructed to have the cameras filming at the same time. So that's how 3D cameras work. Like you've got two lenses and, but these today, Christopher Nolan, Quentin Tarantino, they're using the best version possible of the film cameras that there are today, because there are still some new models released
all the time.
every time. Yes, but there are also plenty of 8K, 16K, like. It's not entirely obsolete, or they just couldn't. And what is nice about film. Also, I don't remember where I heard that at some point. I think it was at the Rain Dance workshop or something. If the film doesn't burn, you can find some old film can and still use them in your 16 or 35 or whatever it is. Whereas you won't have to purchase expensive new digital thing. You can go in old. Boot sales or whatever and find for pretty decent amount of money or something to film on film.
Yeah, of course.
To bring it all back round, that scene where Adam is captured that effect is pretty good. I quite enjoyed that.
Oh, the camera flash?
Yeah, the flash to light the room.
It's really clever. I thought it was really clever, especially because the fear comes with the sound, and because it keeps coming, and that's the only split second that you see what's in front of him, it's like you're there going through it with him.
Yeah, you have to wait. It's the end. That's whole thing of
Anticipation.
anticipation and suspense.
Exactly.
Which isn't present anywhere else in the film, but it's quite nice for that one scene. Actually.
Yeah. I think as well the camera click, maybe it's because we don't hear it that much anymore, is quite scary in itself. So I think that adds to it as well. So it's just a really... I think what's nice about this film is that they're always finding really different, cheap ways of like bringing the anticipation back and like the suspense. And so there's always like... It's always really different. Like the scene where the doctor gets captured. With the
reflection.
Where you see the reflection of something coming out of the car and it's like crawling. It's like really like dancer-like. It's super creepy.
And something that is cool when it's well done sometimes, well, it's the whole Rashomon style. So it's the same stuff but filmed from a different point of view.
Yeah.
So we saw that scene you just talked about at least 3 times from different perspectives, which is, I think, always, if it's done well and is like well integrated into the film, is great, awesome.
Yeah. It has like the I can't remember what film. Nosferatu. There you go. They have like an editing thing where it will be cut to move in a certain way, and so it's like staggered.
Oh, when we talked about how it would be film over layered.
Yeah. So the movement will be just because in the editing room it literally had to be cut together. So the coach moving will just be staggered and look like it's kind of very robotically moving forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just like in It. One scene of it.
Exactly. And they use that in here obviously because that was 1920s, but this is just a style of having like a staccato moving, which works with the camera because of course it's like a picture take, like freeze framed, and then but they use that with the pig mask coming towards both of them, and that really works as well with a camera flash. And that's scary because it's not normal, I guess. It's like it looks different and weird and creepy.
I think what is quite interesting with this film is, even though I've watched it a few times, I'm always... Well, I know obviously how it ends with John Kramer and everything, but I didn't remember at all the Zeb guy and the fact that he was himself in deep shit and stuff. So that's the kind of movie that you can watch 20 times and pick up on new things every time, and you forget, and you're happy that you forget, and because movies like... you can't forget completely, except like if you get targeted hypnosis, as they have today. Apparently, I don't know if that works, but you can't forget who is Kaiser Soze. That's the kind of stuff. So those are the very thing at the core of the film. You can't forget, but plenty of neat stuff that were here for some reason that you forget, and then nice, Yeah.
I think as well his realization, so Adam's realization that it's not actually Zepp who kidnapped them, it's someone else because he's part of the game. Like that adds to it because it's like you're living it with him because he's realizing that, oh shit, we killed the wrong guy and the real guy's out there somewhere, and who is it? And then the camera moves to... It's the guy in the middle of the room that's been in there the whole time.
Do we have the name of the editor? Because you've got to be extremely talented to pull that off. I mean, the editing is just phenomenal, obviously.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
Okay. Where's my phone?
You're probably sitting on it.
Oh, yeah, there.
Oh, for God's sake. iPhones are too slim nowadays. You can't find it. Are you... Okay.
Yeah, I mean...
Kevin Greutert. Greutert. Greutert.
Okay.
Really genius.
Great.
Who went on to... I think he went on to direct. Yeah, he goes on to direct Saw 6 and 7. So we'll talk about him when we get there, but he was the editor on the first one.
Very cool.
We do like to edit stuff with Adam. So we do appreciate a lot.
An editor,
Yes.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Don't worry, guys. So the whole thing with Zepp, this is one of the sticking points in the film. What is Zepp's What's Zepp's test? He's been poisoned, and he has to kill Gordon's wife and child, right?
I think so.
Or is he just meant to oversee the game?
It's weird because you can see it early on, like he's in the hospital. The guy has a name. He's called John.
Yeah,
so
he's a nice guy.
Yes. That's one. I don't know.
I'm going to look up what Wikipedia or whatever website says what Zepp's test was. Quickly.
Well, the thing is that actually comes out later, that John Kramer only takes people that have done bad things. Like, actually, he doesn't, because even when the police officers find him and he's just about to, I don't know, kill or talk to the guy with the nails like coming into his neck. You know, the guy that they find underneath the red tarpaulin when the police officers have kind of found where he is.
That's the guy with the barbed wires. There's
No. The guy that is has been caught, but he hasn't done his test yet. He's just been, and that.
Okay, I don't remember.
You need to. What scene is it?
It's like the last scene where you've got Danny Glover and
Sing. No, Zepp, when they're running in the corridor at the end.
Yeah. I'm just saying that John Kramer, yes, but he's basically has that guy who's anesthetized, and he says, "Oh, I need to find harder drugs for you because you've woken up already and you shouldn't have." It's the guy that has the in the neck brace.
Him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm just saying that quickly, Jigsaw says, "You're here for a higher purpose." So it sounds like he didn't actually do anything wrong. It's just he's used in the bigger game.
Yeah, I think he's never really brought up
Zepp
again.
is never.
Is that?
I looked up. Zepp's test is to basically oversee the game and kidnap Gordon's wife and such, and kill them if they don't do it by 6. That's what his test is.
But he didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, well, it's not necessarily doing something wrong, but the whole thing, I don't know if it's actually jumping forward in the movies, but isn't this that it's actually because you're not appreciating life enough? I think there's a line at the end of this film.
Sure.
It's in the middle where he's like, when with Amanda, he's like, most people are so ungrateful to be alive, not you, not anymore. With
Not
a puppet.
He says that to Adam as well when he shuts the door, because he's like, well, now you're going to like your life even though it's going to be spent underground. Which is kind of fucked.
You'll learn to appreciate what life you had.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, that's the key element more than them doing something wrong. Like
right, but
but yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's interesting about why Zepp.
Right, it seems like he hasn't done anything to show Kramer that he doesn't like his life. I'm not really sure. But then again, Zepp says when Gordon is saying, he's talking to his interns and he's looking over like Kramer, who's obviously got cancer. Zepp says, "Oh, he's a really interesting man." So it seems like he knows who Kramer is in the sense that he's Jigsaw, because he's saying like, "Oh, he's a really interesting man and he's got really creepy eyes."
Yeah, and he has a name.
And he has a name, like, respect Jigsaw. So it seems like he already knows who Jigsaw is before he's caught. And he seems like... So maybe it's like an obsession thing, that he's obsessed with what John Kramer does. And then it gets involved in this really messed up game where he ends up dying.
It's said in the comics, Saw Rebirth, that he's the one that tells John that Gordon is cheating on his wife.
Right, okay.
That's one of the only things. So maybe that is the reason why Zepp is then captured, because he's like a gossip or whatever, but that's really vague. Also, Saw Rebirth comes out in 2005, so the next year, so it relates to 5 or 1, but it's never made clear why Zepp is, and it's also why Zepp enjoys what he's doing so much is a bit weird.
But then people do get like the people that usually get obsessed with Jigsaw are the people that he's obviously traumatized. It's like Stockholm syndrome, like Amanda.
Yes, yeah.
These are later films, but anyway.
Do you have the feeling that Zepp enjoys it?
Well, when he's torturing he does. He like has that scene where he has the heart, the what they call the
the stethoscope.
Yeah, when he's listening to the daughter's heartbeat while he points a gun at the mum to hear her heart rate go faster. You can't have that in the film and go, oh, he's not enjoying it.
Yeah, he is enjoying it.
He's definitely getting something off. It's probably the idea that he's been ignored as like the orderly for so long. So he's like, fuck you, Gordon, I don't like you, sort of thing. But even at that extent, it's like, calm down a bit.
Yeah, I think he's just probably a little bit unhinged. And so...
Also, was Lost out by this point?
2004? I don't think so.
Do we know when was Lost not 2001?
What, the series?
Yeah.
No, I think Lost is much, much later.
Because obviously he goes on to be one of the main major antagonists in Lost.
Okay. Yeah, I think I only watched the first season of that, and then I watched.
2004, same year.
Same year. Oh, lucky, good year for him then.
Yeah, it's a
very good year for this guy.
Just like
although he doesn't appear to like season 3 or something. So
just like the guy playing Dopinder.
Yeah, it's very true. So, of the other thing that most people, well, not most people, the other thing I thought of this film is because I would enjoy this film so much if it was just the room. But obviously, if we just had the room, the film would not be long enough for a theatrical release. So there's a bit more added in, probably. Actually, no, that's not true, because they made it for direct-to-DVD, so it was as long as it needed to be. But the extra scenes as well, what do you guys think about them? So, like, the other test victims that we see, like the razor maze and so on and forth.
I quite like how they're done, like that greenish glow that's over the razor test is quite interesting. Like, so lighting and editing in that scene is it makes you feel a little bit sick because it's kind of fucked.
I think it foreshadows a bit the shattering of the unity of time in later films.
Oh, of course, yes, because we go back and visit these scenes later on.
Yeah, we do.
They're there to establish the Jigsaw killer, which wasn't really in until much later in the script, because I read that one of the screenwriters had a migraine, and he went to the doctors to get an MRI, and he was told, "Oh no, it's fine. You've not got," because he feared it was like a brain tumor or something. Jesus, fucking hell, I don't speak. Brain tumor. Fuck, I'm having a penguin tumor. There we go. I'm having a penguins moment. And he was so happy and relieved. So that's where the whole appreciating life aspect then came into the script.
Right.
It's funny because those words, jigsaw and saw, would only work if you speak English, because like jigsaw is the actual. I don't know what the origin of those words are, but it's actually the puzzle, right?
Yeah, it's a puzzle, yeah.
One saw is the that thing that they cut stuff with, which is that's why it's called Saw, the film, I guess. I never realized when I watched the 3 first ones that there was a jigsaw killer thingy. It never occurred, because probably of the language.
We'll get in 2 is revealed. They talk a bit more about that, so we won't go too deep into that.
Well, they bring it up in this one because the puzzle piece is cut out of the guy that dies in the razor test.
It's so quick that I never noticed it before. I mean, no, not.
It's sort of just like a calling card sort of thing, like this is me. But then it's like, who else is testing people in these really difficult situations?
I think as well, like it, as much as this is personal, it's kind of like this is also a sadistic serial killer, right? So it's kind of it makes the stakes higher because this is someone who was killed before and like is a voyeur in the way that he kills, and he's like known and he's famous and he's a serial killer. Like he hasn't got a soul.
Is it something that becomes prominent afterwards in future movies? Is it explained why right away in this one? Because we actually see it, the pig mask thingy.
Yes, it is, and we'll talk about it later.
Afterwards, it's okay.
Yeah, it's like I think it's Saw 4 when they come into that. It's just.
Oh, I thought it was because I know in Jigsaw they talk about that as well. That pigs are very
yeah, they
emotional.
do, don't they? Yeah, but that isn't even that emotional thing isn't discussed until Jigsaw. So the establishment of that we will talk about in Saw 4 because it comes up there and it's ridiculous.
Okay, cool.
Cool. But I think probably because in this film obviously they just got like a really creepy mask, so they went with that. But that's probably the reason why, and then they explain it later on about this is why he picked it.
Right.
Do we want to go into the rate? We have 15 minutes left.
Oh wow, that went quick.
Yeah, well, 12. Do we want to go into the rating? Or do you have other stuff?
We can go briefly before we do the rating. So the main aspect of this film is obviously the cutting of the leg scene. How did you find the cutting of the leg scene?
Horrible. It's done so well, I think, as well. With someone that has like a really small budget, like I thought it was done really well and realistically.
The only thing that now lets me down because I was watching it is the scene afterwards when Zepp comes in and Lawrence is crawling on the floor. You can clearly see they've just put like a rag over his actual foot. So he's crawling around on the floor.
Right, yeah.
But everything is well done. Like the color he goes, like the sheet grey white is everything else is super well done.
It's like loss of blood and it's like, oh my god, yeah.
Important question. Would you have cut
I was getting
before
to that, yeah.
or after the shackle thing? Because he's cutting
above it.
Yeah, above
so you're
it.
suggesting that you should cut below because you could just slide it out.
Yeah.
Right. I think it doesn't matter either way. I think he goes smart because there's a joint in your foot that obviously connects your foot to the next bone on your leg. So I think he goes for that. I think that's why he cuts there, and also because it's above the.
I mean, he's a doctor, so
yeah.
Yes, that at that point he's desperate because he had a few alerts before, like you was that's now that he's going to no that's not now, but at that point he's just like okay fuck it.
There's three things he goes before. He's like when he hears the phone call the first time, he's like here's his daughter's been captured and there's like oh shit I've got to do this, and then obviously when they first get the saws they're like trying to cut through the thing.
Yeah, they go back to the
chain.
saw.
And that's one thing that you have in movies sometimes. In the first Black Mirror episode with the pig thingy, in here, he's just cutting his thing, but without knowing that his family is actually safe.
Yeah, that's the other. Oh, that is the one thing I wanted to bring up. The phone, right? I know this. You can, when it says you can't make outgoing calls, you can still phone the police. Like you can still phone an emergency number. You don't have to have a carrier. You just have to have a signal. You can phone an emergency response number.
Yes, I think I've read that somewhere too.
Yeah.
But I think also that is just fair enough because if you're in a situation like that, it's kind of fucked up if you if like do you know what I mean? It's like you
also how would that conversation go? Help! I'm in a trapped underground basement. I have no idea how I'm here. I guess he would phone and say my wife's been captured, and then they would go to the wife. And then they would see him on the monitor things and all the such and forth.
Like in Taken.
Yeah, Taken. Yeah, I'm about to be
I
taken.
think also they'd be able to have like a connection to the phone that's calling them.
Like
usually,
trace it or something.
You trace it exactly.
Oh, we're gonna talk about that in 2. The tech team is on the way.
I mean, there's a lot of things that you have to kind of suspend your disbelief. I think that's the
even
phrase, right?
with suspend your beliefs. Yeah, even with that, I'm like. Everything that they do for that reason, I don't like criticize that much. Like I still get so much enjoyment from like them being stuck in the room.
It's a really good idea. Like it's frightening.
Did we ever explain that suspension of disbelief concept? Because it's something that in magic, for instance, if I don't have that, if I don't like plug the thing, I can't enjoy a trick because I know stuff. So basically, if I'm not mistaken, because I actually wondered about what it exactly was a few months ago, it's your ability to just put aside what reality is and just enjoy what is happening for what is happening.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, or you basically, I know my sister has absolutely, actually, she's struggling with that, with the Marvel movies, because she's struggling to imagine that this is their reality, all those superhero stuff. So she has, now thinking about it, massive issues with the suspension of disbelief. But if you're able, and hopefully most of people are, when they're going to see a movie, to have that activated, you can enjoy it as it was made to be enjoyed, like entertainment value.
Yeah, I think you need that. Even if something is really realistic, you need that, because then you just get super depressed or angry, or like I used to watch films and series like that, and I just couldn't watch anything. I had to watch I still do watch like Friends all the time, because it has to be like all happy and fine, and everything's kind of whatever, like bland, because like everything affects you if you take it too much to heart. But if you watch it as something you're just watching, you can enjoy it so much more, and you can actually see if something's good or bad for what it is.
Yeah.
And I actually think it's kind of sad that this thing isn't real is actually becoming even more of a thing, because people watch something and say, yeah, I didn't believe that didn't look realistic. It's like, it's a film, like enjoy it because of what it is, rather than that doesn't look realistic.
Yeah, there's a video on YouTube about the guy explaining about plot holes. Everyone now is talking about plot holes.
Oh, everyone has a field day with Saw about plot holes. Like,
yeah.
Saw is one of those series where you just tear it apart because there are so many like plot holes in it. I'm like, yes, there is, but I like to think of it, and it's kind of defending the movie because I love it so much. I admit, of course, there are plot holes. Like, we spent so much of the movie, the big one is like the very beginning with Adam when he knocks the key down the thing is not fair. Like, that's a big plot hole. If you actually wanted him to escape, you wouldn't put it in there. But you have to be in the reality of the film. Whereas if you're in that situation, you're not thinking logically. You're fucking panicking. Like, holy shit, I could die in this room. You would act in similar ways to the people in the film do, and I think that's quite a credit to the writing and the world that they've created within this film.
Yeah, it would all be fight or flight, and that's not usually how you would be dealing with a situation. Like, you can't be rational.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that in an episode recently. I don't remember which it was, but when you're going to game on TV, even though you know exactly what the answer is, with the pressure and everything, you lose you lose everything.
Yeah, of course.
Just like I think it was when we talked about the meeting celebrities.
Oh yes,
Exactly.
Yeah, that's actually what people do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, that's one thing that I found annoying about this film, and I don't know if it's because of the film or if it just for like character's sake, like because I'm so connected to the characters, that Adam didn't really have a chance to get that key, because if you're underwater, you wake up underwater, you're not gonna thrash, right? And you like, because the plug is like wound around his toe, when he thrashes, it's going to unplug, and then the water's going to go in the, like, it's kind of unfair that the key isn't in the bathtub.
I don't know.
It's not really a puzzle.
Technically, if you ever used one of those saws to at one point it will work. It will probably take 10 minutes, but I don't know what the strength of the actual shackles were supposed to be, like the thing about metal is and that's the exact type of saw that are used for metals.
It's a hacksaw.
Yeah, not like the triangular, those big other ones that are for wood.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just have to suspend disbelief.
Yeah, I mean, we'll
That's
see
fair
later
enough.
on. There are other ways to get out of that foot thing. There are other ways which are done in Saw 3. So we'll be, but trust me, in this series we'll be back in that bathroom more than once.
Yeah, they kind of get obsessed with this, the first one.
Which is a big plot hole in the second one, which we'll talk about in the next episode. Last thing before Yann wants to do the rating, because we didn't talk about it in the new one, so we should start talking about it in the series, is the B plot, which becomes more apparent in the next film. But the B plot in this film with Danny Glover in the detective series. What do you guys think of the detective side of the Saw series this time round?
I think it's a little bit weak. Like, just because I don't really care about it. Yeah. I don't really care about Danny Glover's character. The
Detective Tab.
Is his name Ken Leung?
Detective Singh.
Leung? I just mean the actor, but anyway, Detective Singh. And so those two, you just don't really have either time to care about them or, I mean, we talked about this earlier that Danny Glover was only on set 2 days, which, I mean, we've done filming
in 2
for
days.
like a 10-minute short film, and that's taken 2 days, and we weren't even the main part. So that's like nothing if you're talking about a feature film.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And you know, every character only had like a few, like 2 takes or something each scene. So that's also crazy.
I do think that when the detective story related, like when it got to the end where he was like watching Lawrence's wife and stuff like that, I thought that got quite interesting. Like when it was directly involved with what was happening in the bathroom, because that's what you care about. As much as everything else is going on, like the little snippets of like the flashbacks and stuff, you never get super invested in them. Even Amanda's one, which is is the one that's done the best, because obviously it was a short film, and developed the most. The fact that most of the stuff relates back to the bathroom, you care about. So when we get to the end where it's like he comes in for the wife and such and forth, that's when it's good. But I agree, when they go to like the warehouse to find him, you're like, what? Why are we watching this? Like, why is this here? It does feel a bit disconnected.
Yeah, or it's like they were trying to. It seems a bit forced.
Two is the best one for the detective story, because it plays a lot into the story.
Right, because it's like their main connection.
Yeah, and it comes back. You're right. As long as it's connected to the A plot, feasibly, it's interesting. But the further they get away, you don't begin to care. And I think that's why in Jigsaw, that we didn't talk about it at all, because it barely connects to the... In fact, it doesn't connect to what we're seeing in the A-plot because of the twist at the end.
I think that the first one is the only time when the A and B plot are concurrent in time, isn't it? Something.
Vaguely. I mean, the stuff, we see flashbacks and stuff, but when we get to the end with that, yes, you're right. When after we see the flashback with how Danny Glover got his neck slashed, which I'm like, how the hell he didn't die from that? I'm like, yeah. That was a bit like, wait a minute.
I was so biased from the other ones that was like, oh, is it at the same time or not? Is it? Oh, yeah, it is. Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, they're connecting.
Okay, maybe we could and should go into the rating.
Yes, we shall. So, Anouk, Yann, was Saw good, bad, or just plain standard? Anouk?
Good. Very good. I would say maybe even legendary. Because of the time that I watched this, the way it was done. Also, if you think about production, I think as well, my hat has to come off to the people that are involved, because no money, no time. It's like a really, really interesting story. It's different, and you know, and they brought Tobin Bell into my life. So.
They came from Catch Me If You Can. He's in that as well, I think. Briefly.
Yes.
Or is it Catch Me If You Can he's in?
If you look at Wikipedia, it's the only one on the right side of the starring. That's the only name you have. To find the other actors, you have to go down. Yeah,
he's the big name.
Yeah.
Yann?
I would say good, with a flair of, well, it's a bit presumptuous to say that because I have not seen as many films to be able to. But anyway, I would say a flair of groundbreaking.
Yeah, I'd say that's very accurate. For the beginning of the 2000s, this film paved the way for a lot of other films. I mean, if we look at Hostel, which we'll probably talk about more in like 2 onwards, yeah, films like that would not really exist without Saw. And it changed the field, because it made other people step up, because when we get to like 6, we'll have to talk about what was fighting and killing the series, like Paranormal Activity. So again, it really changed the field for horror films in the 2000s, and it made things a bit grittier again as we moved away from like the Jasons and the Freddys and all such forth.
I think it also really shows that if you really want to do something for like up and coming film people as well, like especially, you can do it, because these guys weren't famous. They didn't have any money at all. And I mean, everyone knows the Saw franchise. Like,
yeah. And they're off doing their own things now. I mean, they went off and did Insidious. It's done by, I think, Lee Winnell is Insidious. That might be the other guy.
Oh, amazing. I mean,
or it might be James Wan. I can't remember which one it is.
Yeah. So, I think also Lee Winnell talks about how he doesn't really care about torture porn. Like, it wasn't really what they set out to be, but if that's what it's become, fine, because now he can do whatever he wants, because he got like...
I'm the guy that did Saw.
The platform. Exactly.
Like, it's not a Saw episode without a twist. Surprise, guys, you've been doing a Vault episode for me. This is in my vault. And I didn't tell you because I wanted a twist. It's not Saw without a twist. So yeah, this is in the vault for me. So we've just done a Vault episode.
Excellent.
It's funny because I figured it would be.
To be honest, it only started when you guys were talking, when Anouk said legendary. I'm like, oh, this is in my vault. But yeah, this Saw is in my vault for many reasons. Not just because the series itself has lasted long for me. Like, I'm interested in most things. I became obsessive when I found out about it when I was younger. But when I watched this film, I'm like, and sadly, this is the peak. This is a really good. A, it's a good movie, and B, it's the pinnacle of the Saw series. Without this film doing as well as it did, or being as caring as it wants to be, we don't get anything else. And like Yann said, groundbreaking. Without this, we don't pave the way forward. So for me, yes, the 2 horror films at the moment that are in my vault, not even my vault. This be Alien. This is in my vault, but Alien would probably be in my vault as well, to be fair. So these are the 2 horror films that are in my vault. So
cool
for me, vault.
Awesome. Vault episode, great. So I thought because we are. So how should we call that month? Horror month again, or Spooktober, or
Spooktober?
Or on Prince Charles Cinema they call that a Horror-October or something. What do you think? Anyway.
What about Sawvember?
Oh yeah, but
Sawtober. That's Socktober.
If you want, yeah.
I don't know. We'll come up with something.
Yeah,
we'll figure something out.
What would be cool because we're supposed to have an episode a week, and we are recording 7 episodes for that, at least 7 Saw episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So I reckon we should release those Saw episodes each day leading up to the actual Halloween day.
Yeah, the last week of October. Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, and maybe we'll see afterwards what we do.
Before we end this episode, I forgot to say that before Yann did sort of like a closing thing. So, having seen this Saw movie, would you see the next one?
Yes, definitely.
So
for sure.
What we're going to do each time we get on, even though we're going to watch all 7, we'll find the point that each one of us would have jumped off and gone, I'm not coming back.
Well, is it? Well, you have to if it's an open ending or not. So if you know from the start, there will be a next one. I want to see the next one.
That's true. This film treats itself as a bookend, like no more. There isn't anything else, which is probably one of the best features about it because it's a conclusive art story. You know, it has an ending. But with that in mind, say you've seen this film, you enjoyed it, then you saw a trailer for the next one. I mean, for this one alone, because after this one, you kind of realise that there's going to be another one each film. So, Yann, would you have, if you saw a trailer for Saw 2 after seeing this?
Yeah, I was not into film that much at the time, so I didn't do that. But today I would, yes.
Yeah. Me too, obviously. So, like Yann was saying, these will come out the week building up to Halloween.
Did you say, Anouk, if you...
Yeah, Anouk said yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Anouk
okay.
said yes.
Yeah. It's coming out soon. So, well, everyone, thank you very much for listening.
Yeah.
And we'll see you around soon. And
the games continue.
Yes. Yes, even though they say game over at the end of that film. But
there's always a door slamming somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we were
Adam.
Anouk.
and Yann. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Good, the Bad, and the Just Plain Standard podcast. If you like what you heard, you can leave us a review via iTunes. If you want to keep up to date with what we're doing, you can check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Good, Bad, Standard Podcast on both platforms. If you fancy seeing the live streams that we talk about on the podcast, they can be found on youtube.com. You search for Milk in a Wineglass. There are other bits and bobs on there too, just to see what Yann's up to during the week. And if you really like us, like really, really like us, why don't you head on over to patreon.com/goodbadstandardpodcast and have a look if you want to support us. Any small donation is appreciated.